if you would like to give a little bit of an intro about this live.
Hey, so the first things first is here's what you do. If you have a question, drop it into the comment section. Just you can ask us anything. Now, shorter questions work way better. And I will do my best, along with camera, to answer as many as we can. So that's all you have to do. Ask short questions. We'll do our best to answer. Now, you're probably thinking, why do I want to ask this guy questions? Because I wrote this super cool book, Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations. And it's a big, thick book, too. Look at the size of that thing. It's like 380 pages of like all kinds of stuff. I write about my life with bipolar disorder. I write about family members. I write about advocacy. I write about living with anxiety, depression. I did a birthday blog every year for like 5 years, and I put them all at the end. And boy, am I emo. Like, I don't even know what happened there. But it's a really, really, really cool book, and you can get it at gabehoward.com. So pretend there's a .com after this. I'm sure it'll pop up on the screen eventually. So that's my book. That's why I'm here. That's all you need to know. All right, camera. Are you ready to get started? I think I've plugged the book enough. And I am super excited. I should introduce Camera. Camera is super cool. She's not on the screen. You should be on the screen.
I will be just a second.
She's shy. She is. Camera is awesome. She is a complete badass. She has always been behind the scenes, but I said, look, I'm like a middle-aged, ugly guy. Oh. I need somebody who is young and awesome and intelligent and has purple hair. And she's like, I am all those things. And in addition to that, she is the host of the Mental Tea podcast. Camera, tell people about that while they're putting their questions in the comment section.
Before I get into mentality, I want to make sure that we know that please ask your questions in the comments. Any question that you have about mental illness, anxiety, depression, anything in small form, because long form questions are just going to be harder to show on the screen. Ask a quick question and we will answer them. So we're going to get to the comments in just a second, but I do host a podcast called Mentality, where we spill the tea on the psyche, and my co-host Light and I also host a live. This Thursday we're having our mental health happy hour on the Mighty at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, and that's when we just talk about random good news that you might not have heard of, and also our good news, and uplift you in your good, happy moments of life. So if you want to join us there, wonderful. But now we are on to asking questions about mental health, asking the wonderful Gabe Howard, bipolar advocate, will be answering most of these. If I can chime in, on my experience with anxiety, depression, and ADHD, but that is where I stop my line. So,
hey, all right. Do we have questions? Are we excited?
I see a question. Right. Yeah, let's get into our first question. So Tuesday is asking, do you find that a trigger can send you into a depressed episode? Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and the answer is yes, of course it can. And I don't want to leave you hanging just with yes, of course it can, because that's not very uplifting, right? That sounds, well, frankly, very, very depressing. Here's the good news. Once you are aware of that, there's things that you can do. We can, an ounce of prevention really is worth a pound of cure. And I say that because if you figure out what your triggers are, and you know that your triggers are going to lead you into a depressed episode, there's a couple of things that you can do to help yourself. You can learn coping skills to deal with that trigger, which will help avoid the depressed episode, or at least lessen it. Of course, in some cases, depending on what the trigger is, there's the opportunity to avoid it, or at least be aware that it's going to happen, which again lessens its impact. I absolutely find that some of my triggers will leave me either depressed or anxious. That's my personal experience. It can cause an anxiety or panic attack. For me personally, but being aware of the triggers and learning coping skills so that when the trigger happens, I can immediately invoke said coping skills. And coping skills can be anything from mindfulness, taking a deep breath, walking outside, getting a drink of water, just whatever it works for you. I really like oh, pardon me, I have to go to the restroom. And then I sit in the restroom for a couple of minutes, splash some water on my face, take a few deep breaths, and then say, okay, Gabe, I got this. Maybe some affirmations in the mirror. Believe it or not, that works very, very well for me. But again, your mileage may absolutely vary. All right, camera, how we doing? Are we rocking?
We're doing. We've got some questions. We've got them going. So would you like to get on to the next question, or do we feel we want to still talking about triggers?
No, I think that we have rocked that out. Camera, if you have anything to add, I am not a diva. You are welcome to add it, just as long as you are a little less cool than I am.
No, I just want to say that triggers are completely valid. And if anything, the reason why I would like to say something is I recently was triggered by a friend like on social media where I'm like, oh, seeing people outside and having fun kind of triggered my anxiety. And I'm like, oh, so I can definitely relate to triggers. And I just want to let them Tuesday know triggers are really valid. And yes, it can, but just to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. So yeah.
They're a pain, aren't they? They're
a pain. I hate it. All right, our next question.
Thank you, Tuesday.
Tuesday. All right, we have here, how do I take care of my own mental health while trying to help my boyfriend who is bipolar type 1? Gabe, let's take it away.
So first and foremost, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's one of those things that every time I hear it, like, I'm like, oh, that is, it just reminds me of the little kitten hanging off the branch that says hang in there. It's like, how garbage is that? But it's true. It may sound, like I said, it's just one of those things that people say all the time, like live, laugh, love. It's like, oh, I just want to puke. But you can't pour from an empty cup is absolutely true. So first and foremost, you have to prioritize your mental health. That's why I'm saying that. People think that, no, I have to take care of my loved one first. You can't. If you have nothing to give, you're not going to be able to help your loved one. I know before COVID, I used to fly all the time. And when I was on the airplane, they would always say, look, if you're traveling with a small child and the oxygen mask drop, put your own max oxygen mask on before you put it on your child. And I always thought, you want me to help myself before I help my kid? Like that didn't sound right to me. And I asked a steward about it once. I called her over and I said, flight attendant, what's up? Like, what mom or dad is going to prioritize themselves over their kids? And she said, here's the thing. If you're trying to put that mask on your child and your child is scared and your child struggles and you pass out, it's over. It's over for both of you. Whereas if you put it on yourself and your child passes out, as soon as you get that mask on them, the child's going to come right back alert because they're now getting their oxygen. So by putting yourself first, you save both and you really prevent a really scary tragedy from happening. So it's really important that you are 100%, you have your full faculties, you know what's going on, and you've prioritized your own mental health so that you can give your boyfriend 100%. Because he's going to need 100%. Bipolar disorder is a scary, scary illness. I do write about it in Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations. I write a lot about it because so many people, literally so many people, think that they are being a good advocate by prioritizing other people. And it's just simply not the case. Take care of yourself first, and that will put you in the best position to make good decisions and do helpful things for your boyfriend and, of course, other people listening for their loved ones. So, all right. Thank you so much. Camera, anything to add?
No, I think that that's really important. So we want to take care of everyone else. We want to be able to just give ourselves, and you really can't, like, no matter whether you're taking care of someone who has another illness that they're dealing with and such, like, you have to take care of yourself first so that you can be the best for other people as well. So
completely agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. We ready for the next question?
I am always ready for the next question, unless Great. I'm not.
Well, let's see if we're ready for the next question. Let's see. I am overwhelmed. Oh, so it's just kind of more the continuation, overwhelmed with bipolar type 1 and also a disabled brother. It seems like a lot of self-care kind of needs to be happening so that you can take care of both of them, but that's wonderful that you're being there for both of them. Cedars, I think it's Cedars. Got an awesome person.
I've now broke.
And we have a lot of supportive comments. I have a comment actually right now that is from one of we didn't get to last time. Would you like to go to that one?
Let's pop it up.
Great.
Hopefully they're still there hanging out with us. They came back 2 weeks later.
Yeah. So I'm 58 years old and recently discovered I'm bipolar. So I started staying to myself as much as I can. I'm on medication and not ashamed. I'm not sure I'm manic. How do I recognize it? So I think, how do you recognize if you're manic or not?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that I want to say is, the second part. So I've started staying to myself as much as I can. I understand. I want you to know. I feel that, like, like I want to hug you, and I understand. When I was first diagnosed, when I'm depressed, when I'm anxious, when I'm having a panic attack, I just want to cocoon. I just want to hide. I completely understand your desire to do that. As somebody who is living with it and managing it, it's not my best play. It's not the smartest thing I can do. Small doses, friends who understand, family members who understand, one-on-one, just doing a little bit, even if it's just, going to pick up fast food, healthy fast food, and saying hello or stopping to talk for a moment or holding open a door. I do believe that it elevates mood. It helps us connect with people, and I think it's of vital importance to do. I understand why you want to cocoon. Please reconsider if you are able. As far as recognizing mania, that's a trick, right? Because mania, it rewires everything. The example that I always use is, when I was manic, I jumped up on a table or a bar at a restaurant, and I started yelling. I have no idea what I was yelling about. And I saw the room respond to me, and that made me excited, right? I'm like, yeah. And lots of stuff happened. And, and I woke up the next morning and my friend was nowhere to be found. And I called her and I was like, what happened? She's like, we got thrown out of a restaurant. A bunch of people screamed at you. You screamed back. To this very day, I don't remember it that way. I remember that I got up and started yelling, that people laughed and cheered, and because that's how my brain rewired. People were paying attention to me, but it was negative. The point of that story is, it's really hard to tell that you're manic when your brain is rewiring the signals. And that's where listening to the people around you is extraordinarily important. I am very fortunate that the person who was with me is somebody that I trust implicitly. And when she told me that that's the way it happened, I believed her. I did not think that she was lying or trying to embarrass me or anything like that. I believed her 100%. I took that story to my therapist. My therapist is like, yeah, that's what it looks like from your perspective. So just be aware that the people around you feeding you information, find some trusted people that you can trust to give you information. One last little thing, sometimes I get these like really big ideas. Grandiosity is a thing with mania, where I'm going to make $1 million or start a big podcast or whatever. And here's the thing. I don't want to tell everybody that when they get like a really great idea that it's mania, because how awful would that be? I mean, imagine if I know Camera does not have bipolar disorder, but imagine if Camera said, hey, I'm going to start a podcast and it's going to be really positive in a time when there's not a lot of positivity. And I think it's going to be a real big hit. And I said, oh, that's mania. You're not going to be able to do that. Podcasts are really hard. Well, that would be really, really mean to her. But let's say that I was concerned about it and I didn't say anything, and she went out and bought $5,000 worth of podcasting gear, put it all on her credit card, and couldn't pay her rent. Right, Camera? That's the double-edged sword. So yeah. My advice to you, and I do this myself, when I get an idea, I sit on it. I think about it. And am I still excited about that idea a couple of weeks later? Am I still excited about that idea a couple of days later? Because I got to tell you, a lot of times I'll come up with this great idea and I'm really excited. And a week later, yeah, it kind of lost its luster. But a couple of them, they stuck around. And that's why I wrote a book. That's why I have a podcast. Yeah. That's why I got married. I mean, it's not always about work, right? We have idea. That's why I went to Las Vegas on vacation, 2 years ago before stupid COVID. because I got the idea in my head and a couple of weeks later it was still exciting. So those are some ways to gauge your mania. Ask the people around you, when you get these ideas in your head, write it down and see if you're still excited about it a couple of weeks later. Camera.
We have a few more. Yeah, we have a few more questions. And actually, this is an answer to one of them. A continued question that Cedars had was any book recommendations to understand bipolar. So I think that that's a really good segue into, again, like Gabe has a fantastic book. If you want to learn more about mental illness and his bipolar journey, please check out.
Look how big that thing is. Like I don't, the publisher, I didn't want to name it Mental Illness Was an Asshole. Like, people think that was my idea. I was against this name. What
was the name you wanted?
I don't know. I didn't get to pick one. They told me when they're like, we're going to call it Mental Illness Is an Asshole. And I was like, well, that's just like the working title, right? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I can't name it that. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, my grandma can't see that. She'll get mad at me. I did write an article called Mental Illness Is an Asshole, and that is where they took the name. They were right. Nobody cared, including my grandmother. But
spare the grandma.
Yeah, I wanted to make my grandma happy. I love my grandma. My sister's here, I think. Is Deborah Wyatt there?
Yes, she is.
Deborah Wyatt. I just want to say one quick thing to my sister. Grandma loves me more. That's all I'll say. That's all I got. Grandma, favorite. All right, are you ready to bop over to the next question there, Camera?
Yes, we've got a great question from Jenny, kind of like a continuation. We had another question earlier about being triggered into depression, but now, like, especially during this time, I think it is really hard to get work done. Like Jenny is asking, how do you get work done when you're in a depressive state? So Gabe, what would your advice be for that?
Yeah, so the first thing is, and this is very, very important, people get this idea in their head about what it means to get work done when they're in a depressive state. And they're almost always comparing themselves to the unrealistic goals. One, let me tell you about Gabe Howard when he's perfect. Like no symptoms, no problems, full night's sleep, everything's going well. The dog is perfect, the wife is beautiful, everything is fine. I will say things like, all right, I've got to edit this podcast. That'll take about an hour. Now, listen, there's an hour and a half of raw footage. So that's already stupid. It'll take an hour and a half just to listen to the raw footage, then, cut it, put it together, write all the notes. I mean, that's like a 3-hour job. But for whatever reason, I'm just really bad at estimating time. The reason that I bring that up is many people with zero mental illness, they don't gauge how long it takes to do things, and then it ends up taking over. That's where we get, terms like, missed the deadline, budget overrun. This is just common things that happen. It's part of being human, this misunderstanding of how much time things take. So now let's put this when we're depressed. We already generally have this idea, it'll take 20 minutes to cook dinner. Yeah, it takes 45 minutes. But now we're depressed. So maybe even the 45 minutes is now an unreasonable goal. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that it is. It's going to take you 3 times as long to cook dinner. You're thinking, wow, it's going to take 2 hours and 15 minutes to make dinner that normally takes 45 minutes. Yes, don't judge yourself. You're sick. You're dealing with a lot. You are going to accomplish making dinner even though depression is doing everything that it can to drag you down. Don't focus on the fact that it took you 3 times as long. Focus on the fact that slow and steady wins the race, and that 2 hours and 15 minutes later, you have dinner. You made dinner even though you were depressed. So many people focus on it took too long, it takes too long, I moved too slow, other people are faster. When what you want to focus on is that in spite of depression, in spite of being sick, in spite of not being at your best, you made dinner. Now, replace dinner with any goal that you want to accomplish. Get dressed, take a shower, vacuum, go get the mail, run an errand, go to the grocery store, whatever. Don't focus on how long it takes. Write it down on a list and go one to the next and celebrate. Celebrate when you get something done. I got to tell you, that is what allows me to move forward. It's not focusing on how long it takes. It's focused on the fact that I did it. I highly recommend that. All right, Cam, are we ready for the next question?
Yes. Let me just hope that the next question fits on the screen.
Some
So,
of it will.
oh, cool. So Angie says, how do you know what's your bipolar and what's a normal reaction to life? I was just diagnosed, and this is something I really struggle with. Hmm.
So yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that there is not an easy answer to. It is hard to know. Let's say that this circle represents Gabe Howard. Where does Gabe begin and bipolar end? And here's the reality: it's all connected, right? It's just running around in a circle. And the reason that it's important to know what is bipolar disorder and what is Gabe is because if it's 100% bipolar disorder, it's a symptom, and maybe I can work through a coping skill or get treatment and get rid of it. But there's always this stuff that's kind of in the gray area. Maybe it's your personality, maybe it's bipolar disorder, maybe it's a little bit of both, maybe it's nothing. And that's hard for, I mean, it's hard for me because I want to know, is this my personality or is this bipolar disorder? The reality is we have to get comfortable with the unknown. If you can figure it out, that's fantastic. I know that a panic attack is anxiety, but I don't know if I'm afraid of snakes because I have an anxiety disorder or because lots of people are afraid of snakes. I just don't know. Now, what I try to do is see how close I can get to a snake. And if I have a panic attack, probably panic and anxiety. If I can learn, if I can talk to a snake handler, a zookeeper, and help and move forward, it still could have been the anxiety. Maybe I just overcame it. But here's the thing: who cares? In that analogy, who cares? And sometimes we have to give in that middle ground. We just have to go with kind of a who cares. And that's really, it's hard to sit with because I want to know everything. But the reality is bipolar disorder, it's entwined with our personality. And some of that we're never going to be able to tease out. And I personally don't want to waste my life trying to figure it out when I can spend my life living it. So I can control what I can. I write down what I can. I work with my therapist to figure out what stuff is in the gray area. And then some stuff I just let go. Write everything down and see if you can notice patterns is the best advice that I have. But just remember, when you write down bipolar disorder or normal reaction, you have a third category, which is gray area. I'm just not sure, and that's okay. That's really, really important. There's more than two options. Thank you so much, Angie. We really appreciate you being here. Camera, next question.
Let's get to that next question. I want to make sure that we get to Billy's question.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to read a little bit of it and then put a little bit more on the screen. So, hi, Gabe. My name is Billy. I have suffered from depression since I was 10. However, I've noticed my moods constantly change every day. For years, I have a feeling that I may have bipolar disorder. How do I go about getting a diagnosis in these difficult times? So I think this is really great for the time, especially like getting a diagnosis during the pandemic.
Yeah. So first and foremost, COVID really does throw a wrench in the works, doesn't it? What you need to do is see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So see if you can make an appointment with a psychiatrist or a psychologist, even if it has to be a telehealth appointment. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not a doctor. Different doctors have different rules for, they'll see patients via telehealth, but they won't diagnose via telehealth. So just make it very, very clear when you call up a psychologist or a psychiatrist that you believe, you suspect, I would use suspect, you suspect that you may have bipolar disorder, and you need to see somebody because you want to make sure that if you do, you get on top of it, you get ahead of it, and you can take care of it. So just be very, very clear that you suspect that you have bipolar disorder. Here's the reason why you suspect that you have bipolar disorder, and that you want to meet with somebody who can diagnose you. And that's very, very important. Now, if they can do it via telehealth, that's fantastic. It looks pretty much exactly like this. The doctor's on one side, you're on the other. They ask you questions and they can do it. If you have to go in person, that can be more difficult. However, a lot of doctors' offices, they have very, very good protocols. I had to go to the doctor the other day, and when I pulled up into the parking lot, I sent them a text message, and I said, my name is Gabe Howard. I'm here for my 1 o'clock appointment. They texted me back immediately and said, stay in the car. We'll text you when it's time. I waited 10 or 15 minutes. I got a text and it said, okay, please come in the front door, make sure that you wear a mask, and immediately use the hand sanitizer to sanitize your hand. There's a little station when you walk in. I did that, and they told me to sit down. A couple of minutes later, a person came out and got me immediately and took me to a back room. The doctor came in, and there was always 6 feet, etc., because people were waiting in the car. There wasn't that big busy waiting room, and I got the medical care that I need. Everything was fine. I got my prescriptions, and I left. And I don't think that I was ever within 6 feet of anybody, including my doctor, because of the way that they managed it. They've put all these in place. So the bottom line is make the call. Make the call to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. If you can't find one of those, call a general practitioner and ask for a referral. You can also see a nurse practitioner. I'm not sure what is available in your area, but those are a psychiatrist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. If you can't find one of those, call a general practitioner and ask for a referral. Get the diagnosis. Just because we're in a global pandemic doesn't mean that other illnesses and other mental health challenges still aren't out there. Please do not ignore them because of COVID. So many people have put stuff on the back burner now for a year, and it's starting to really catch up with our society. Toothaches are turning into really bad things because people didn't want to go to the dentist a year ago. And now after not getting treatment for a year, it's unfortunately worse. So just keep that in mind. Thank you so much, Billy. It was super nice.
You,
super nice meeting you.
It was a great question. Wonderful answer. Good, important for the times. So you ready for the next question?
I am.
Wonderful. I feel like this is also a question, this next one, that we had last time. So I think that we'll be iterating a lot more on employer questions with mental health. Have you ever disclosed your mental illness to an employer, and have you had to take time off due to illness, and have they been understanding?
Again, I pride myself in brute honesty. I have disclosed to 3 different employers. 2 of them turned out fine. 1 of them did not. It is not surprising that the one that turned out poorly was the first one. When I was first diagnosed, I didn't know that there was anything to be shy about. So I just walked in and said, hey, everybody, I have bipolar disorder with psychotic features, and I have panic attacks and often cry, and I need extra. And I told everybody and their brother. I really thought that people would rally around me. It turned out very poorly. My coworkers got angry. There was a kerfluffle, and ultimately it did not work out well for me. Now, it's not fair to say that it's all my fault because I mishandled it. That's not fair to me. But the next place, I handled it much differently. So that's just the compare and contrast. No matter how you handle it, you shouldn't be discriminated against for having a mental illness. But we live in the real world. Let's give ourselves the best opportunity to succeed. And the second time, what I did is I made an appointment with human resources, not my supervisor, not my boss, not my coworkers, human resources. And I went and I sat down with human resources and I said, hello, my name is Gabe Howard. I have bipolar and anxiety disorders. I need special accommodations. I need some help. I'm a good employee. I want to work here. I just need a little bit of help. And the human resources person said, hey, that's no problem. First, we need you to fill out these forms. We need this documentation. We got to cross our T's and dot our I's. And she helped me do it. Then after we got that done, she said, okay, I'm going to meet with your supervisor and just say that Gabe has all of his paperwork in. He needs a reasonable accommodation. Never told him what I had, never told him what the problem was, never told them anything. Just that Gabe is now allowed to take 2 extra breaks, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and that's how that's going to work out. And here's how we're going to measure his productivity. And we're going to shut the window for his desk. I forget what it was. It was a long time ago. That went wonderful. Oh my God, it was wonderful. I got everything that I needed. They loved me. I was sad to leave that job. The next job, I did exactly the same thing, and I had the exact same outcome. I got everything that I needed. They got everything that I needed. Everything was fine. Now, with that second job, I was there long enough, and I felt really comfortable that I did disclose to my supervisor and my upper management, and plus I was already kind of doing this, so really the cat was out of the bag. But I started with human resources, and I got all of that paperwork in order first. And then I privately disclosed to my supervisor and other people and just managed it a lot better. The bottom line is start with human resources, get all your paperwork in, and what you're looking for specifically is reasonable accommodations. What are the things that will help you do an excellent job? You just need a little help. And that's all it is. It's just a little help. And it's very, very important to phrase it that way. Don't say that you're entitled to special treatment. Don't say that you're entitled to help. No. You need a little extra help so that you can do an excellent job and we can both get what we want out of this relationship. And start with human resources because they can really, really help, at least in my experience, turn it from a good situation or turn it from a bad situation to a good situation and advise you of your rights. I saw somebody wrote, if there's no human resources, what do you do? You're right. Then you do need to disclose to your direct supervisor because they are essentially your de facto human resources. My recommendation for that is make an appointment alone. Either make it the end of the day or the beginning of the day over lunch. Wait until your coworkers are gone. Just that you need to have a private conversation and then do the exact same thing. And document everything and keep all of your paperwork and files not at work. Keep it all at home. When you fill out that form and they give you a copy, take it home. Just put yourself in the best position to succeed. I do want to say real quick, and I know this is a hard thing to say, if the job doesn't work out, try to find another one that does. I know that it can be, like what an arrogant thing to say. Oh, you got fired and you can't eat, you don't have insurance. That's okay. Another job that you're better suited for will come around the corner. I know that is a very, very difficult to say. If they did something illegal, please call a lawyer. Call, in a lot of states have employers' rights organizations. There's disability rights that you can call if you get in a situation. If you are able to, try to find that job that meets all your reasonable accommodations, understands, and that you both can be your best self, because that's the best long-term success. I do acknowledge camera. I mean, it is a bitter pill to swallow when you lose that job, but I do try to believe that if you keep doing it this way, you will find that long-term solution. But during the finding it, that's the hard part. All right, we have time for one more question. I think do we have one more question?
We do. We have a good one from Jenny that I think would be good, especially I think is really poignant for the pandemic. We're about to come up on the anniversary of the start of the pandemic, and then a lot of people also have their own things that they have gone through. And her thing is, how do you handle a trauma anniversary? So not just the pandemic, but if that's kind of an example, how do you deal with the anniversary of a traumatic event or just a moment that was really, really tough for you for your mental health?
Yeah, so here's the fascinating part about this question. There's no right answer. You can handle it any way you want. And in my experience, it changes over time. When I was committed to the psychiatric hospital, 1 year later, it was a very somber experience for me. It was a little bit scary, just remembering it being on the same date. I did not have a good time with it, because it was almost like a gut punch. 1 year was hard, and I wasn't well yet. Now the second and the third and the fourth year were easier, but around the fifth or sixth year, a lot of time had passed, but I was really, really in recovery. I really wasn't managing. I have to manage bipolar disorder a little bit, but after 4 years of coping skills and therapy and medication, and I was really in a really good place, and I missed it. I missed it. My friend said to me, a couple of days ago is when you were in the hospital. And I said, it was? And she was like, yeah, it was. I completely forgot about it. And for the next couple of years, we put it on our calendar and we like celebrated it. Like it was almost like a rite of passage. Like, yes. So it went from like a gut punch to a somber occasion to a forgot to a celebration. And now, honestly, that was 18 years ago now. I have entirely forgotten about it, which again is the cycle for Gabe. But here's what I want you to know. There's just no wrong way. Do what you want. If you want to stay home that day and cry, give yourself permission to stay home and cry. If you want to celebrate it and have a big party, do it. If you want to do nothing, do it. How you commemorate the things that happen in your life are entirely up to you. And anybody who tells you that there is a correct way to mourn a loss or mourn trauma or remember trauma or feel about trauma, those people don't understand trauma. Don't listen to them. As long as you are safe, you do you. Do whatever you need to do to move past it. If I do miss the party, I do. I'd get all my friends together and we celebrated the day Gabe got committed. This fits in with my personality, but I'm sure that other people hearing this would think that's just dark humor that I don't approve of, and that's okay. They don't have to approve of it. They should do what they want to do, and just know that, because there's just too many people telling us how we're supposed to respond to the things that happen to us in our lives. And I don't believe that it's helpful. Keep yourself safe. Make sure that you are okay. Be open and honest about what you're going through. And if you don't like the way you're reacting to it, work with a therapist or other mental health professional to move past it in the way that you best see fit. And just keep moving forward. I know that you can get there. Camera, we reached the end.
We did.
Should we? Well, here, I'm the host of that podcast, if you like my voice.
Check out.
I wrote this book.
It's a great book. Check it out. And you can get a copy of Gabe's book at gabehoward.com, and you're getting a signed copy. I think that's pretty special. So.
Yeah, and look, it's much prettier than my face. Look, that's my headshot. Look how good I look when like there's an editor involved. Look.
It's a great headshot. And
I know.
You look great either way. Like it is how you present yourself and how you feel that the audience connects. So
Photoshop.
Well,
Camera, thank you so much for being here. Where can folks find your podcast? And you're coming back on Thursday. Stop by and see Camera on Thursday. And then where do they find your podcast?
Yes. If you want to listen to our last season of Mentality, you can go on Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts under Mentality, which is mental, I-T-E-A. So how you spell mental with an I-T-E-A. You can find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts, basically, but those are the three main spots. And we're excited. We're relaunching in March, I believe, late March. So tune into us then. But until then, get Babe's book and go and listen to the Psych Central podcast that is out right now that you can bring your ears to. But we're so happy to be here with you today. Thank you for all your questions. We'll try and get to more next time, and just have a wonderful day. Mental.